you have all this?
Yeah, I have all three of them. I'll work on all this stuff. Yeah, probably better, right? Yeah. Whatever you're, is that we're good to go?
Yeah, we're good to go.
Okay. Awesome. Well,
You guys are live.
we're all live. Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Omar and I both work for the Cape Breton Partnership, which is a not-for-profit economic development agency in Cape Breton. We work with all of the municipalities on Cape Breton Island. So Cape Breton Regional Municipality, where we are here, but also Richmond, Victoria, Inverness, and the town of Port Hawkesbury, as well as 4 First Nations. So we have great connections across the island, but we can work both as kind of partners with the municipalities, but sometimes people just want to come talk to us because it's a little bit easier. We're not government, so that's our shtick. Oh, do we need a mic here? You want me to use this one? Oh, we use this one. Okay. Okay. Now, for those people who are online, maybe I'll go through that again. We're the Cape Breton Partnership, and we work with all the municipalities and 4 First Nations on Cape Breton Island. And we do 3 main things. We promote Cape Breton as being a good place to live or do business. We connect people and entrepreneurs to the existing programs and people that we know that can help them succeed here in Cape Breton. And we help to grow a culture that people want to be part of, and where so we can move ourselves forward and enjoy not only living here but thriving here in Cape Breton. As I said before, we work with, sometimes you'll hear something called the REN, or the Regional Enterprise Network. That's something that we operate in these areas. It's more of a bureaucratic term, but you may see it sometimes. But all in all, we're going to give our business cards out at the end, and I imagine our contact will be on Facebook or on this recording at the end, and you're welcome to email us at any time. But perhaps we're going to kind of tag team a bit. My title is Economic Development Officer with the CBRM. And Omar is, I'll let him introduce ourselves, but he's with Labor Market Immigration.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so I intended for this to be super casual, informal. We're on a Saturday afternoon, interrupt and ask questions anytime. I am the Labor Market Development and Immigration Officer with the Cape Breton Partnership. Similar to Tyler, my role is to work with the municipalities and work with employers and work with job seekers and really help advance the labor market in terms of employment, all the indicators like lower unemployment, increased opportunities, increased exposure of opportunities so people can find the jobs and the jobs can find the people. And in addition to the labor market component, I also do immigration. So I'm also an immigration specialist. I helped roll out the Atlantic Immigration Pilot for Cape Breton Island. And now I've transitioned, so the Atlantic Immigration Pilot, of course, you may have a lot of questions about that one. I'm an expert on that program. But I'm also on my way to licensing for immigration, so I know more broadly now about all of the immigration programs federally and provincially. I think that's a good introduction, and then well, I can go through all of this. Do I go through my list of items?
Let's make it you. This will take me a while. And then I'll go into some of the more like the industry and stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's see. Sure. Yeah, the job board. Let's start with the job board. So before there are
jobboard.com. You should be already up there.
There's really in Canada the usual suspects. The Real Beacon, Indeed, the Job Bank, of course,
this
one's more formal site. But we never really had a regional tool for employers and job seekers on Cape Breton Island. So we never had a place where, just for Cape Breton, where jobs can be posted and job seekers can be there, with a good notification system so people can know about the opportunities that are being posted as they are being posted. Usually, and I think that's statistics from Connector, that 80% of jobs are not posted. Sometimes they just go through connections, or when they're posted, they usually post it for like a week or 2, and then they're gone before you even know about it. So if you go up to the top of the page, so very sleek in design, the ones that design are in this building. you create an account, you're either an employer or you are a job seeker. Now, an important feature of the job board that would be of important relevance to you is that, let's say if we are creating a job seeker account. And I will just talk to it by the time you fill this and get to the experience tab. So just hypothetically fill it all in, and I'll just talk to, until you get to the experience tab, I'll just read something. Every, in labor market and immigration overall, in Canada, there's a big dictionary of occupations. All the jobs are classified, right? And they are classified in category, that's the first number, 0 to 9, and then major group, to the second digit, and then minor group, now you're in 3 digits, and then an exact occupation title, which is 4 digits. So any job title would be associated with a 4-digit national occupational classification code that's called a NOC. The NOC system is basically used for statistics, for immigration, for classifying if a job is skilled or not skilled, for the sort of requirements that are required for the job. So in that dictionary of occupations, it says you can't work as a doctor unless you're licensed to work as a doctor in that specific province, for example, right? So it is being referenced, it is referenced in terms of regulatory affairs, it's being referenced in terms of statistics, and it's being referenced in terms of immigration. Why am I mentioning this for the job board? I'm mentioning this for the job board, keep fill it in a little bit. So I'm mentioning this for the job board because there are only very few tools, the job bank being one, where the jobs are linked to an occupational classification code for Canada. So Career Beacon doesn't do this because it's an international tool. Indeed doesn't do this because it's an international tool. It's only the job bank, and I think, I'm not sure if the provincial tool even that's being rolled out right now, it's very recent, if it links to NOC. I don't think so because it's an aggregator and it catches from Indeed as well. So, oh, it's asking you for a dummy file?
Yeah, for dummy file.
It's okay. I can sign in with mine. Yeah. Okay. So I'll jump and I'll show you, but I'll finish this thought. So every job, if you go back to listings, and I'll log in later, but if you go back to listings, and whichever one, pick any one. Yep. And then scroll down to the bottom, all the way. Okay, and then go up. You see the job information. The second item is the NOC code. Every job that gets posted, we verify it and match it with the right NOC code for it. Why is this important to you? If you're looking for immigration, you want to know that code. If you want to know the regulatory requirements to work in that occupation, you want that code, right? In addition to that, me being spammed all the time. When you create an account on Indeed, for example, based on the previous occupation titles that you had before, it will send you jobs matching that name of a job, right? Well, business development can be 1,000 things, right? So it is not, let's just say it's not all the time accurate. But in job board, you can select either category, major group, or minor group for the occupations you want to be notified about when they are posted. So when you're creating a job seeker account, you can select the exact occupations that you're interested in. And when the job gets posted, it really sends you a one-liner. A job matching your interest has been posted by this employer, here's a link to it, the deadline to apply is this. That's it. There's no spamming you, and it's immediate. So as soon as the job gets posted, the email goes out. Because sometimes, like I said, a job can get posted like a week or two. I don't really need to demo what it looks like on the job seeker side. It would have been quicker, but it doesn't matter. But basically, you can choose to be notified about, so say, for example, all management occupations start with 0. You can choose to get notified about all the jobs that start with 0, which would be all the management occupations. Or you can go more granular in terms of what specifically you want to be notified about. Some people will select it all. Some people, I, for example, have only 3 minor groups that I'm interested in, which would be either policy, human resources, and I can't remember the third one. But so that's for the job board.
And where are these jobs located in that?
They're only in Cape Breton. And they could be all over the island, but it's only Cape Breton.
And then we're getting stuff. And so, I mean, I'm gonna.
There.
So with,
Because I went to
how many jobs are on here and how
You check the other map.
Okay. Oh. Hey.
Hey.
This is way better than my This is good. So, how many jobs are on the job board? Because I think we get that question quite a bit. And how new is this tool? And how many jobs do you think are going to be on the job board?
Okay. So right now I think we have up 23. If you go up and go to job listings, I think there's 23 jobs that are posted right now. We have had up to 150 that were posted since it was launched, and the tool was just launched in September. So it was fairly quick. How it started was we were doing collaboratively a job expo series with, and it started in 2019 with Nova Scotia Community College, CBU, the Cape Breton Partnership, and Nova Scotia Works offices, which are the employment offices across the island. But when COVID happened, and we had the first job expo in 2019, we had 25 employers with 230 positions that were posted across the island. And then in 2020, we scheduled the job expo, 3 of them, and then we had 300 positions that employers were looking to hire for, but then COVID happened. So there was no in-person job expos, that was a big no-no. But then we were like, well, we don't have a regional tool, and we identified the gap, right? The gap was there. We knew that this service was missing, right? Or the tool was missing. So then we developed the job board, and it was commissioned in May, I think, and then delivered in September, launched early August, and then job board 2.0, which was included the knock notification system and so on, was just in December. And we're now doing 3.0. Which would have a volunteer page listing. So it would accommodate volunteer listings, it would accommodate board terms, and so on.
And I think what's important, I think if if you're employed and your employer is looking for people, we're working to make sure that this has more jobs, right? We know that more jobs are out there. So what we do is whenever, and I'll get to a little bit more what I do, but when we talk to businesses, we're constantly saying, please tell us when you have a position so we can get it up on the job board. Yes, put it up on Indeed if you wish to, if that's your thing. But the problem with that is that it's also mixed in with people with jobs from Toronto or Calgary or sometimes Los Angeles. And it really, for people who are here, that doesn't help them very much. We want to help them with jobs that are here. So if your employer is looking for a job, and if they're just saying word of mouth, this is free. You've heard Omar is very good at what he does. We will help people get their stuff up if they're not technically savvy. And we'll make it useful. And even if you're not looking for a job right now, we really appreciate you, if you think you're going to be looking for a job in the future, to get your profile up here and set up the things that you want to be notified about. We need to grow both sides. We want to get more jobs for those who are seeking to find employment, and we need to have more potential employees for those who are looking for employees. We need to kind of grow both at the same time. Omar's done a lot, and his team has done a lot of work to get to this level. But clearly we know that some people really want retail jobs. Some people really want food service jobs. Some people really want management jobs. And we need a broad swath of all of them. And we do have a fairly unique position in Cape Breton, where we do have a fairly high unemployment rate. This is true. And there are many organizations trying to tackle this from many different areas. Our organization, to some degree, is assisting. But at the same time, we've got a lot of businesses looking for people. We have this really strange scenario where they can't find the people with the skills that they want. And hopefully some of you are some of those people with the skills that they want. And these things can be grown together.
So, and on that point as well, and I'll share the doom and gloom statistic. Just one statistic. Promise, I won't talk too much. I think right now for Cape Breton is older in terms of median age and worker to retiree ratio than the rest of Canada. We have 25% above the age of 65, and we have more. One more. And then we have more, and we have more death than birth. So that means we have negative natural growth, which means we will rely on immigration and attraction domestically as well to fill labor market gaps. So yes, we do have labor market gaps, and that is expected to keep going for the next decade. By 2035, Canada overall is predicted to have negative natural growth, and overall will rely on immigration. This is why the immigration targets increased dramatically in the past 3 years. But we are significantly behind in terms that in 2035, Canada would have 25% above the age of 65, and 100% of labor force replacement will come from immigration. We're already there in terms of pay rate. So we are a decade behind trying to catch up on demographic difference. I hope that makes sense.
I think you should ask that.
Does that make sense? That makes sense. Okay. So one more thing about on the job board as well is that we've taken an extensive amount of time. If you go to resources at the drop down, and then so you can find the not list, the makes. You don't need the makes, but wage subsidies. Wage subsidies is very important. We have summarized all the federal, provincial, and institutional wage subsidies for your employer or you. So that is meant to help you sell yourself to employers. So you can if you drop down the federal one, just click on the federal, yeah. Canada Summer Jobs, Young Canada Work, and just very quick explanation, and especially on the provincial ones. So if you go down, and let's visit the provincial, yeah. On the provincial one, international graduates are eligible for graduate opportunity, and they are eligible for innovate opportunity. Usually, federal wage subsidies, international graduates don't qualify, but because Atlantic Canada is older than the rest of we want to retain our international graduates, they are eligible for the provincial wage subsidy programs.
That rolls in really well. So Omar definitely is your man when it comes to job seeking, immigration, all the things he's talked about. He's our expert in house, and he has a great team. So if you do have questions, again, his email address will be available. You can send drop a note to one of our websites.
Oh, I'm not done. There's more, but
okay. Could you put up the Welcome to Cape Breton site, please, Esther? Thank you. So we run.
Do you want us to ask questions on different sections, or when you finish everything?
Probably now would be better for questions because.
Like on the topic is
so
it's meant to be informal. So if you want to ask something about it.
Okay, for example, I have two questions. The very first question is, for example, maybe like the people studying right now, like all those jobs you just listed on programming job board, for example. Now let's assume, for example, I have my master's, for example. If I was about completing my PhD before coming to this place, let's assume that I'm studying here, but I'm way qualified, right? It's not because I'm studying that I'm not qualified, right, to do stuff. So can someone like that apply to all those jobs? Will they still be accepted? And will it not be that, okay, you're still studying and all that? Which one will come first, the qualification of the person or the status of the person?
I think that is a selection criteria that depends on the employer.
You want to repeat the question so people online?
Yeah, and can you, so actually, like, I'll rephrase the question just to make sure I understand.
Okay.
So if someone is, already has post-secondary education, but they are enrolled in a program and they are studying, and they apply for a job, right? Your question is it going to be prohibitive for them to get that employment, to secure that opportunity because they're a student, or because they already had, or they're overqualified, right? Is that the question? Okay. That depends on the employer. If the position is full-time, and someone is studying and they can't work full-time, well, obviously that won't work, right? If, I don't ever see, it is rare when an employer will intentionally not hire someone who's overqualified. They will need to have stronger emphasis on retention. So in that situation where it's a position where they want to lower turnover, so they have more people leaving, like people are rolling, so it's a cost on training and onboarding and recruitment and so on. So they want to lower that turnover rate. then they will probably look at hiring someone who's not overqualified, because that means that when they find something better, matching their skill set higher, then they're going to leave. On the other hand, if an employer is not worried about turnover, and it is a good position, and why would they not hire someone who's overqualified who can potentially elevate the value? Obviously, they can offer more value in that role, right? I don't see it being prohibitive. I think again, it depends on the circumstance, but for students, that really depends on the job being posted. If it's a part-time job,
because the reason I ask this question is I interact every day with lots of people from India, people from Nigeria. These two countries especially, they're beginning to grow here, especially the Indians. Now when you relate with them, you notice that they are qualified already, most of them from their country.
Yeah, so I'll speak exactly to that point. So I know where you're getting. So so basically what you're saying is that when they are studying, this is more of a pathway for them to get some relevant Canadian credentials. Right? And then to get a work permit and try to find their way to permanent residency, or to reach into the labor market, right? Maybe they don't, right? Let's not assume that the purpose is immigration. So,
by reaching into the labor market, you need to find a job.
Yeah, exactly. Putting me on point. So you would be surprised how many have graduated from public health, for example, that are medical professionals, and that are working towards getting their medical licensing, and they're working in pharmacies as pharmacy assistants. They are qualified, they know biology, and they love them, right? Because a lot of them are in long-term care, right? And it's not just as continuing care assistants, but like in some go into administrative, some go into higher up, and they're working their way towards licensure, right? It really depends here, it splits into two. Is your previous post-secondary education transferable in skills, and it's not in a regulated field? So it can be in a regulated field or a non-regulated field. In a non-regulated field, you just have to get some, really market your transferable skills and try to land something in your area of practice, right? If it's a regulated field, then you have to go through the regulatory process. There may be examinations that are needed. There may be, and this is why the NOC system is very important, because you can find the occupation that are based on the career path based on your previous post-secondary education, and know exactly where you need to get regulated or licensed in your profession, and whether it's a federal regulated profession or a provincial regulatory body that moderates that profession.
Yeah, and I think building on that, I mentioned one of the things that the Immigrant Partnership tries to do, not just by ourselves, but with a whole bunch of other people and partners on the island and people on the island, is to create a culture of positivity and change. So some of these problems are hard. Some of this credentialing problem is hard. And it's going to take a while. So I don't think we want to sugarcoat the fact that there's some people who are very qualified that can't get a Canadian job of a similar thing. That's not something we can't always fix that, but we can commit to changing the culture of trying to make it easier when we can and influencing those policies going forward. We hope it takes a short amount of time, but even if it takes a long time, we're there to try to make that better. None of us want to have a doctor from somewhere else not practicing medicine here. And I think we're getting better at it, but it's a challenge that I think we need to acknowledge. We appreciate people coming to Canada with those skills.
And there are resources in place to help them transition into the regulated field. There's the Atlantic Immigrant Career Loan Fund, which will help those who are in regulated profession get the necessary financial resources to go through the process of transitioning. I think it's very low interest fund, it's zero interest, and it very paid over a long time, so that it's not it's not a burden on the individual, right?
Yeah.
Because to help them go into you need these books and you need to study and there's the exams and there's travel and there's all that fun stuff. And sometimes that is prohibitive for someone to work in the field, right? So they have to go through that regulatory process. But there are resources that are there to help them. There's the Atlantic Immigrant Career Loan Fund, and there's a a detailed breakdown of pathways to regulated fields for the Immigrant Surveying Association of Nova Scotia ISANs.
Does that answer?
Yeah, I have a second question. So the second question is...
Wow.
Is it better for you to be on the mic too? Just so that people don't mind?
I think I'll just move back and just
Okay.
check out. Yeah. I don't have COVID yet. Okay, don't worry. Now, the second question is, for example, because personally, I want people to be in Cape Breton, right? So let's assume you have someone that has permanent residency outside of the province, and they want to move in here, right? That's the first situation. And maybe a student or some other people that are here, either with PR or student status and all that. Now, this loan and wage subsidy that you're talking about, do they also have access to it? For example, if they're going to start something here, like someone is just moving in here, how does that play out?
For the loan, that Atlantic Immigrant Career Loan Fund,
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the criteria exactly. So, but I can, as a follow-up, I can send. There are other programs that I have here to talk about. So maybe it would be appropriate to send resources on these criteria and so on. I'm not sure if being a permanent resident is a requirement.
Okay.
But I have a feeling it might be. So, but it would be, I think it would be better that I follow up with the program details and the website to it and even a page for ISANs about all the different pathways to licensure.
Yeah, you can tell us where to put it so that people online can find it as well, not just us.
No.
But that's something I'll mention with my portion. So, Omar focuses more on helping employers or helping job seekers find the labor or the jobs that they need. So one thing I always like to put a positive thing, we're kind of paid to be optimistic. So, but we got to bring ourselves down to earth too. The great thing about all of the demographic stuff that Omar said is that there's tons of opportunity if you're a new immigrant to Canada. So there are less Canadians in jobs, and we need more people coming to Canada, becoming Canadians, and become part of our country. So that long term is good. There's short term hurdles, absolutely, but the long term trajectory is very good. And I think probably never been better since the last 100 years. I think it's a really good time. So part of the thing I work with is on industry developments and kind of promoting the island. I'd like to talk a little bit just about some of the interesting things we've been able to come across and we see in our economy. So yes, we see lots of times people wanting to work in retail or work in food and beverage. And we see new restaurants coming up here in Sydney in particular, which is really exciting. But what you sometimes don't see are some of the other industries that are growing in our area. A few that I just wanted to highlight. Our fishery here is quite remarkable. So things that you see in the restaurant, cod, haddock, hake, crab, lobster, all of these things are fished a lot in our waters here, and we have a lot of new businesses that are growing. So these industries are great on the primary end of things. Not a lot of people move to Canada to become a fisher person. However, there are opportunities. One of the other services that we provide is a business planning service. And there's a modest fee. It doesn't come anywhere. I think it's $100. So it's a lot for someone who doesn't have $100, but it usually would cost someone about $2,000 or $3,000 if they were going to do it. And it would help them get to a business plan. Why we do that is it helps you get a business plan that is normally seen by Canadian financial institutions. This goes a bit back to your question, Pastor Scotia, with access. So there is at least some funding programs for new entrepreneurs that do apply to permanent residents. There's few that apply to those before permanent residency, but futurepreneur is one of them. That's kind of the word future and entrepreneur mushed together. This is a bank and a program focused for people between the ages of 18 and 39, and it helps them get that startup capital required for a new venture. They're more apt to lend to someone with higher risk, someone who doesn't have a business background, who's never operated a business in Canada. And they and other banks, such as the Community Business Development Corporation, CBDC, sometimes don't know other names. The major banks, Scotia Bank or Toronto Union, we maintain relationships with them all, and through these programs, we help you build a business plan that is likely to get funded. We don't offer money ourselves, but we help you introduce you to the people with money and help you have the right plan to get forward. So, also with the demographics that Omar mentioned, there's a lot of small businesses that are wanting to retire. There's a lot of small businesses who want to find a new owner. Part of our job is finding those business people, because they don't always put a for sale sign on their lawn. That's bad for business. If you say, hey, come in and buy a sandwich. Oh, you want to buy a business too? It's not very good for business. But there's many people like that. If they're in there anywhere. Sometimes we have business. I can speak to the Ugly Bug, which is a business here that is openly for sale. We've been helping them. They're transitioning to a new owner. They had a number of international people interested in their business. There's some immigration programs that can allow someone to purchase a business, achieve permanent residency, and eventually a citizen. So that is attractive to some people. But there's others that just want to be interested in being able to move forward and purchase a business. So we can be there to help a potential buyer and be there to help a potential seller. One caveat, we are not real estate agents. So we cannot help with the actual deal. We help with the introduction. We help with helping you get the knowledge of what to do and where to go and who to talk to. We do work with a number of agents, and we're happy to connect people to them.
Can I add to this, because it's relevant to that one? There's something very exciting that's happening just for Breton in terms of entrepreneurship loans. Aside from, because I have it here as a note, so aside from the Business Development Bank of Canada, the BDC Immigrant Loan, which is for recent permanent residents, and I think it's up to $50,000, very low interest, and so on. There is a very special new program launched by CBDC and CBU for international students. There's no immigration, there's no business loans that are usually for temporary residents like students. So this is actually a big deal. They've done a lot of research, and there is a possibility. So if you're an international student or a graduate and you're looking to start a business, you can come see Tyler and Janet for business planning portion, and you actually have, if you need financing, you actually have an option, but it's just for Breton.
And this was really big. This speaks to the work that we do as partners. So that's not something we offer. That's absolutely something we've been pushing for. It's because we meet people who are new to Canada regularly, and they always tell us this. I would say that the thirst to run a business or start a business is higher in people that are new to Canada than anywhere else. And this is spectacular news. We were really happy to hear it. So perhaps people listening or people here are interested in learning more. So the site we have up here is welcome.breton.com or .ca.
I think it's .com. If you get confused, I think it's .com. It's .ca.
.ca. Thank you. Welcome to .ca. So there's a lot of information on this site about general what's it going to be like in Cape Breton. We are actually updating the site soon, so if you go to it in the next month or so, it might look different, but the basic premise is the same. But I might ask you to bring up the entrepreneurcb.com site. So we have 4 sites here all together we're going to show you, and we'll probably put them up as well. This one is going to have the program that Omar mentioned. It's going to have every other program that might help a new business person. Loans, training, partners, you name it. The search bar is the best way to go through on this. So anything that we mention, the information is going to be on the site. What we decided a long time ago is that we can go to all of the sessions like this. We could do this every day. We could send emails. We can have charts on our computers. But it was a lot better that when we come across a new program, we put it up on this site. Like the Cape Breton job board, the only programs we put up here are things that are available to people in Cape Breton. If there's a program that's available only to Manitobans or only to New Brunswickers, it's not going to be up here. Some of them are national, and we'll put them there, but if they can't happen here, it won't be on this site. So we actually provide a minority of the services available on the site. We do business planning, business advisory, immigration, and sometimes special projects where people can get, for instance, we just finished one where a startup can get a free website and an e-commerce platform. So anytime we do something, it's up there, but maybe only about 10% of the programs here are stuff that we do ourselves. Other ones will connect you to the other agency or the other person. And one thing I think we can promise is that we will always introduce you. If we know it, I'd say over half of these programs, we will actually know someone in the other organization. And so if Margaret works for a co-op, I'll send Margaret an email and I'll say, hey, Sachin is interested in this thing, Margaret, it's your program, here's his stuff, please help him out. And it's so your personal services help a lot. I'm not sure how much more time we have generally.
I think we have
It's about 5:30 now, but you want to continue?
perhaps 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes. I think 30 to 40 minutes.
Okay.
I do have to kind of go over coronavirus complications for immigration and so on. But that's a larger topic. But what I do tell you, this is something that is of interest. Can you Google coronavirus IRCC? And then how to remember this one? Yeah. If there's anything about how COVID-19 is impacting immigration, it'll be on this site. So if you scroll down a little bit, travel restrictions, immigration, work permits, public policy exemptions, anything and everything will be here.
Yeah, so I think I encourage people are really helpful on Facebook with some of the student pages in particular, posting up new opportunities with immigration and PR. But we encourage you to check back to a site like this just to make sure that it's not over information. Because we certainly, we know, I don't want to know firsthand that mistakes can be made and it can be not very good. And we certainly want to avoid that. I think if there's any other questions, we'll take them. I feel like we can definitely go deeper on any of the topics we've covered. But we'll leave cards and we'll have our contact information on the websites. But is there any other questions here now?
What were you hoping to get out of the session? Did you get it? And if not, what were you looking for? What kind of information were you looking for?
Yeah, I think
What's your name?
My name is Deborah, but
Deborah.
just a clarification on the website. What was it? Coronavirus?
The one for Immigration Canada? Yeah, it's can you scroll? So you Google coronavirus IRCC, which stands for Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada.
Oh, yeah, right at the top there, Canada.ca. It's pretty long, but if you want to write it down, or maybe we can include that in the notes, perhaps on the Facebook thing.
But yeah.
Yeah, everything else I'm starting to know about the things that are happening in Brighton. We didn't talk about it more than something that students we are able at least to get a loan and stuff. Because I love business, but I'm still waiting and see what I can engage myself into before I take the step. Yeah. But it's nice to meet you guys, so at least we know where we can start. Yeah.
I think next till 6:30, so we got lots of time.
Oh,
I don't think we'll get quite to 6:30, but we can. Well, I think one thing I'll build off. I mentioned fishing, and that one was kind of like one that I know that not many new people come here for fishing. One industry that is really interesting. We just finished a deep dive into opportunities for adventure tourism, and that's something that seems to be global. So if you have been able to travel around the island, you'll know that there's skiing, there's mountain biking, there's some trails, but there's not a lot of the larger resorts like you'll see in other parts of the world. Definitely, Ski Cape Smoky is doing a lot of investment in the Eastern Canada's first gondola, and it's under construction now. It'll be in operation next winter. That has been spurring a lot of new investment. We expect a lot of new jobs. They're already figuring out what they're going to do. But the spin-offs are amazing. A lot of local people are opening new accommodations, new services. I mentioned the mountain biking. There's people looking at doing mountain bike tracks. I know the Lakes Resort, Breton, just by the ski hill on Route 4, is hiring right now. So we have a lot of people hiring in these more remote areas. And something that I know, we were speaking to one of the people here before we got up, travel to some of these locations is sometimes difficult if you're new and you don't have means to transportation. If you have your own car, it's just a matter of calculating, can I get there or not, or do I move there? That's fairly easy. But certainly in the past, if people have gone to Cape Breton University, a shuttle service happened last summer, helping people get from the places where they live to places where they can work further in Cape Breton. And there's increasing employers looking at ways to transport employees from where they live to where they need to work, especially in seasonal employment. So if you're on the job board and you find a job that's quite a ways away, we would encourage you to apply anyway, or to talk to that employer and say, hey, how can I get there? I want to work at this job, but can this work? Part of what we do as a culture, changing our culture here in Cape Breton, is to encourage people who do business with us to think outside the box. My t-shirt here, I should say that too. This is in Gaelic, I cannot pronounce it. Gaelic is a language that I do not know. But what it means is Cape Breton First, and it's a campaign that you'll see across the island, and it was meant to, during COVID, to encourage people to help their small businesses who were suffering because people couldn't come and buy goods and services from them. But it's come to mean a little bit more to think about Cape Breton as a whole, which includes newcomers, which includes people who are here, which includes people from different backgrounds, and it includes thinking about our community as a whole. And so I think a lot of employers are thinking about the challenges that are faced with them, that Omar mentioned with demographics. They're thinking about new ways of doing things. And increasingly, I would encourage, if you're applying for a position, I know lots of folks are interested in jobs, but come with those solutions and their questions, because sometimes they just haven't thought about them. You know, many people are like, well, I posted up, and nobody comes and drops off the resume. And you're like, well, you didn't put it on Facebook, or you didn't tell them that you would help them get to the place that they need to work at, or you didn't tell them that you'd help them find a place to rent while you're working there so that you can get to your job. Many people are willing, but they just haven't thought about it. So we'd encourage people to be a bit proactive on that, or talk to us about the job.
So on that note, I have two things to say. Cape Breton and this COVID-19 kind of have reaffirmed this belief is the place to be forever. Before, my friends would ask me, because I was here, I did CDU, I did NCC, and I went to Halifax, and when I had the opportunity to come back here, some of my friends, which are now beating themselves in the head, when I said that, I'm going to take this job back in Cape Breton, I'm going to go to Cape Breton, they're like, whoa, you're going the wrong direction. Usually you come from Cape Breton to Halifax and go to Montreal or Toronto or Vancouver. You're going in the wrong direction. You're regressing. No, you should be going the other way. Wow, I'm so happy that I took that decision. And I'll put things into perspective as to why Cape Breton is it, and why the possibilities and the opportunities are endless right now. NSCC, the new campus, is moving downtown. Programming, there's going to be an expansion. There's going to be downtown revitalization. This is going to change the face of Sydney. That's just one project. Healthcare redevelopment. There's a lot of projects that are happening that will transform the face of Cape Breton in terms of healthcare. On the other side of the island, the private investment around Cape Smoky. We're going to have Atlantic Canada's first gondola. Ski Bignon, their expansions and now the lakes and the golf resort. The private investment that is going to come in out of these public investments that are being done. The growth that it will happen, maybe it's not visible right now, but it will be very visible in the summer when construction and all these things start to ramp up again. It will be very loud, but it was sort of a legacy in the making, because Cape Breton is truly transforming, and the evidence is already there being published in CBC and so on. House prices in the eastern zone are exploding. And all over the Atlantic as well, people are moving away from urban centers. And especially with this mindset and the workplace culture shifts around all these employers that were before like, oh no, they need to come to the office, they need to work from the office, we don't believe in productivity of working from home. Now, Amazon and Google, some people were never going to go back, they're not going to go back to work in the office anymore. They're saving on the rent, people are more productive, people are spending more time with their family, they're happier if they're getting out. We're blessed to be COVID-free, thank God. So we are getting out more often, but those that are stuck in Toronto, for example, that's a really difficult situation to navigate. And then when you look outside here, you see all this room where you can go hiking, running. We still have things to do, right? So that investment, and we are lucky and we are blessed in terms of the changes that are happening to Cape Breton Island, especially in the next 10 years. And we are right in the middle of its start. Like it's just kicking off. So the opportunities, if they're not here right now in its abundance, they're going to be in abundance just in a couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, sorry, question.
Yeah, I have a question because for someone like me, of course, I'm never going to write an application to anywhere, but instead I'm always thinking about, okay, what more value can I have, for example? So what I really want to ask about is, now, it's interesting to know that you can access loan to get something started here. What's the ease of doing business, really? Because I've lived in different countries, and sometimes they tell you, the government tell you there is money and all that. Sometimes maybe tax is going to kill you. Maybe something is going to be levied, you have to do some certain things, and all that as a foreigner or as an international. You don't have a PR yet, for example. And also the same thing goes for students that are trying to start something here. It's a different ballgame for you to make money available. It's another thing for doing that to be easy. That's what we call the ease of doing business. So I want to, because personally I'm interested to start something. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. That's my own personal idea. So, but I don't know if you can talk about it.
For sure. Yeah. No. Well, first of all, that's part of the reason we're hired. So, and we can keep secrets. So it's one of the reasons that we've been hired to do this. So if people come to us with a business idea, and it wants to be kept secret, it's kept secret. I'll give an example of a brewery that has talked to us recently. There's more than one. So we talk to both of them and we say, great that you're thinking about starting this brewery. Here's the information you need when it comes to local regulations. Here's the people you need to talk to when it comes to provincial regulations. Here's what we can help you with business planning. So we'll help map out those places. We don't know all of the answers, but we do know all of the places you need to go to start. Also, we will say to them, there's another person working on a brewery, just so you know. It's like, we're not going to tell them, I'm not going to tell you who they are, and I'm not going to tell them who you are, but it's happening, just so you know. And we might give it, and then perhaps we'll find out that, you know, brewery A is looking for maybe some, or maybe they're really great at the science, and they're not so great at the marketing. And the other person wants to start the same thing, is really great at the marketing, and they don't have any background in actually making the product. And we'll say to them, you know what, we kind of see your challenge here. You might want to talk to this other person I know of. And, you know, and if they say no, that's their own vision, that's fine, because not everybody wants to collaborate. But we make sure that we go as far as we can without disclosing other people's information to make sure that happens. I would say government regulation is government regulation. There is some that's complicated, but I'll reiterate, we're here to help find where you need to go and what you need to do. Some of them are fairly simple. Starting a restaurant, there are some better checklists. There's a new provincial navigator that we can get you in touch with that is similar to us, only based in Halifax and connected to different departments. So in a restaurant business, you have to talk to the Department of Health, you need to talk to the Department of Environment, you need to talk locally to the building inspector, you need to locally to the development officer, and we'll tell them these things that they need to talk to give them a sense of what they need. It sounds, when I say that, very daunting. We found it to be not quite so much. Most of the people you deal with want to help you start your business, but it is frustrating if you don't have someone guiding you. That's part of what we're here to do. And it's not just us, but I would say, you know, we're definitely a good first step. There's other organizations that we also involve. One thing we didn't talk about, I guess, along was the welcome network and stuff like that. But similarly, again, to changing the culture, there's places where newcomers can come and kind of get not just me as a service provider, but it's also good just to get to know people. Someone's like, oh yeah, like I started a restaurant. Here's the problem I had. Because it's one thing to hear from me, who doesn't have the same experience as someone who's started their own business. And so our welcome network, which we can get into later, or it's on our website. Our connector program, which gets people, what's the eligibility for the connector program?
Just a recent graduate.
Yeah, recent graduate. So that one's a really neat one. It's super simple. You sign up as wanting to be connected, and you just say, hey, I don't know anybody here, and you come talk to us. And Robin Lee is our coordinator, and she'll be like, great, let me take your name. She's like, here's 3 people who have agreed to have coffee with you, or tea if you don't drink coffee, or water. And their job, the connector's a volunteer. They're a person who knows people, have done things in this community and wants to help out. They're not agreeing to give someone a job. They're not agreeing to give them a great opportunity. They're agreeing to have coffee, learn about them, and then to give them 3 more people for them to go have coffee with, or water, or juice, or cookies, whatever. But the neat thing is, after doing that only in 2 iterations, you've met 12 people that you never met before. And then one of those people, when they're talking to Omar, and they're complaining that they can't find a new line cook for the restaurant, and Omar's like, I just met someone who knows how to do this, and they're looking for a job, and you should go talk to that guy. And so that really helps out informally. So we have the formal thing with the job board. We have lots of programs and expertise ourselves, but increasingly it's increasing the power of just person-to-person relationships. I too am a newcomer to Cape Breton. I came from Alberta, and similar to Omar, everyone said, why are you going in the wrong direction for? And I'm really glad to be here too. But interestingly, even though I'm Canadian, I also didn't have a lot of these connections, and I'm blessed with my work to have some of these connections. But increasingly, my wife grew up here in Cape Breton, and I rely on her and her network and family. But if you come with none of those, it's really difficult. And so we recognize that, and we think this is part of the solution. That was a long answer. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Can you, maybe we can show the invest video?
Oh, yeah.
Can you go to the invest tab at the top?
Yep. And maybe finish with that unless there's any other questions. Scroll to the top.
There we go.
Yeah, if you just press the play button on that.
On that next page. And it's new.
World's greatest innovators.
Do you want the...
Yeah, this is the view that don't there.
It's the place that inspires some of our world's greatest innovators and entrepreneurs. A magnet for creators, Cape Breton Island is a place where culture and economy meet, where lifestyle and innovation don't coexist, but are ingrained in everything we do. People from around the globe have been inspired by our breathtaking island. Let Cape Breton inspire you. With 2 ports and 2 airports, our island is positioned for convenient and efficient access to North American and European markets. We have tens of thousands of kilometers of untouched land ready for development. Our robust post-secondary education system offers access to a skilled and dedicated workforce. We have one of the lowest business cost locations in G8 countries. And above all, we have an unmatched quality of life that makes Cape Breton Island one of the best places in the world to live, work, and invest. Everything is possible in Cape Breton. If you're a creator, thinker, innovator, doer, invest in Cape Breton.
Any more questions? We're good?
Do you have any questions?
Yeah. So
We're having questions.
you have questions?
Yes. So
So
yeah, I'll just stay here. So as international students, we came here to study. So for me personally, I came here to study, but it's hard for me to think of to stay here, and not just because of job, and also for many other things. I know we here are still developing, so yeah, that's a great idea that this program here that can connect us with the employers more. That's really important. And also, I felt we students really need assistance for building up, like you said, credentials here, and also to get us get one foot into the door. So, yeah. What do you have any question?
No, I think everything was very useful, and especially knowing about the opportunities that, especially as students, and looking forward to one day doing something in Cape Breton. So I think everything, just like you said, what you said has been useful, and we'll definitely look at the sites and the resources that you showed. So
Yes,
thanks.
definitely. Just to need we do need a time to grow here. So it's still growing, and I see a lot of opportunities.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. One thing I didn't mention, you said, when you're done, and that's great. Some people, that's perfect. One thing I have had a question recently from someone who just came here, just started their education, and they said they're looking for a job, and they're thinking about business. And something that Omar told me about a year ago, you can start a business. You can start a business now. If you just arrived here, you can start a business now. And the benefits of starting a business now is that if you're at all interested in doing a business and continuing that business and using that as kind of your thing in Canada, you don't have to continue it. But maybe, Omar, you can talk a little bit about what that means with the Graduate Opportunity Program, very briefly. Because they can get a ramp going, right, with their business. They start now. They got that 2 years ticking already.
are you talking about the Entrepreneurship Program?
Sorry,
I got to come out, I was like, oh, you guys do things that are like, whoa.
Entrepreneurship Program, Entrepreneur Immigration Program.
So the International Graduate Entrepreneur Program. So that's the provincial nominee program for immigration. There's one specifically for international students. It could be you and 2 of your colleagues. For example, you don't need to have 100% ownership. It could be 33%. And usually how the entrepreneurship program works is that you have to run your business for a year, and then you apply to get the nomination. Running that business for a year could be before you graduate. So, because in the other entrepreneur program, which is not for international students, someone applies, they sign a business performance agreement, they run the business, they get a work permit, they run the business for a year, and they apply for nomination. And then when they get the nomination, they apply for permanent residency, and that takes 18 to 24 months. You can skip that running a business for a year if you were already a student running your business.
And also, as a student, you do not need to have minimum investment. Your business could literally be running a hot dog stand. Or it could be a consultant. You could be putting your services as an educated, smart person to work and hiring out your expertise. There's no requirement for the amount of investment you have to do as a student. Whereas, if you go the route that Omar mentioned, if you're not a student, you have to invest at least $150,000, and you need to have a $600,000 net worth, which is usually as the scope of a student.
That's
I think he has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's allow you to go, because I have a question from where you're saying that without allowing you to go.
Okay, thank you. You talked about the research down here, so I just want to know the agricultural part of it, like market. the local agriculture thing, do you have any here?
Sure. Yeah, there's some agriculture. There's less than there used to be. So there's less producers here than there used to be. Most of the agriculture experts I speak to say that they think the growing season is going to become better here as a result of global warming. There's not a lot of what they call Class A soils in Cape Breton, but there's a fair amount of lesser soils. The Class A soils are usually concentrated in the area between here and Waterford, in Edwardsville, in Sky Glen and Macadam areas, in the Lake Ainsley area. So this might not mean much if you don't know your geography here that well, but there's some areas, many areas, because they haven't been farmed, because that industry kind of went down here. Because agriculture here, as in many other areas, has gone into more of an industrial scale, and it's hard to get fields of like 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 acres here in Cape Breton. You need small, more value-added products that can drive more profit to make that farm work. There are interesting entrepreneurs, though, that are making changes to that. I know of one startup company that actually has roots with CDU, starting to do greenhousing. There's a few vegetable farms up in Millville area that are pushing the boundaries of the corners of their season. On the Invest video, you saw someone in a pumpkin patch. So pumpkins have that revenue that can work. So there's some. I would say that just like anywhere else, it will be a combination of thoughtful investment and technology. There's one instance, there's a couple dairy farms on Cape Breton Island, one of which was purchased by someone who moved here from Ontario, because it's very expensive to purchase dairy farms in Ontario. Well, it's still not cheap to do it here, but it's cheaper than in Ontario. They came here, purchased a dairy farm, changed their business model, and they're now opening a creamery, which will be producing milk, not just milk, but yogurt and sour cream and that sort of thing, cheese.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that is highly regulated. So that's an interesting one, and they've been able to overcome because they saw the opportunity in the marketplace. Something really that COVID brought about. People were more willing to purchase from a local producer than just going to the supermarket. So.
Yeah, the question I want to ask is, we're talking about if a student, for example, is doing something like consultancy, right? It doesn't really have to be like physical programs or something like that. How do you regularize that to be able to show that maybe at the end of 1 year that I've been doing this? So do you get registered for that?
Yeah, you have to get registered. So it's a funny word here in Nova Scotia called the Registry of Joint Stocks, but essentially it's becoming an official business. So it's some people can run their business simply as an extension of themselves. So if I was to go and sell Omar a bag of chips, and he pays me $2 and I only paid $1 for it and I made $1, I have to tell the government about that income on my income tax, but it's just me. It's still my taxes and it's still just me. If, however, I register a company, which is separate from me, and the company, using its own bank account, purchases the bag of chips, sells it to Omar, makes $1, the company takes that money and files a separate return on the taxes as a separate entity. So that would be important for this. So as a new person, a person who just came here as a student, you can create that company. And as Omar said, you can either be the sole owner or own all the shares, depending on how you want to word it, or you can have a division of ownership between 2 or 3 people. It'd be important to talk to Omar if you're going to do 2 or 3 people and make sure if the purpose is for immigration, you want to make sure you check all the boxes. But that's great. You do have to form an actual company that receives revenue. It doesn't need to make money. It just needs to be operating with the intent of operating well. We all know that some companies start up and they don't make money for years. Tesla's a huge company that doesn't make money for years. They've lost money like crazy, but they're operating with the intent of being successful.
Thank you so much. Yeah. See you later.
Any other questions? Good.
We'll leave our cards and we'll make sure information's on the live stream.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
wants to be, he wants to be. We're proud of you guys for what you're doing in Immigrant generally. I mean, I wish I could just work on your team because I want to see this place develop. I want to see this place, become one of the best islands in Canada. I mean, who says it can't be one of the best in the world? You know what I mean? All the resources and everything is there. Like, so I can
I'm going to this letter house right across the street.
Thank you to you guys. Of course, maybe subsequently, I'm going to try to see if we just have better planning in terms of coordinating the people, because quite a number of people felt me to be online and there's a bit of mix up here. I've been following on YouTube as well, some people are online. So we're really happy to have you guys here. Thank you so much. And every other question that will come after this, I'll try and get those questions directly to you so that you guys can answer them.
Thank you very much. We're lovely in here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I will take that. I'll give you one of these too.
Thank you. It was very.
Sorry, I forgot your name, Esther.
That's fine. Yeah.
Just